Now, this time of year is known as the hot stove season in baseball, where you gather around and you talk about what all of the great players did and all the marvelous plays they executed and all of the wonderful thrills that you have as you watch the ball go out of the park. Well, baseball is the national pastime, and in 1887, there was a young man named Ernest Lawrence Thayer in Worcester, Massachusetts, who wrote a wonderful poem, and that poem became singularly the most favorite poem of baseball in all of time. And tonight, we're going to get into that wonderful little mode where you picture yourself, the town of Mudville, USA. It's now just before the turn of the last century, where baseball players would play in more like sandlot places with stadiums that were not built yet, but they were bleachers. And men would go with suits and fedoras, and women would go into the stands, well-dressed and nicely dressed, and they would all enjoy the game. And all of those little towns glorified, they loved their baseball players. They were the heroes. And, as a matter of fact, there was one hero in particular who stood out, and his name was Casey. And the whole team relied on Casey to be able to win a game whenever it wasn't going well. Well, here is the side of Casey at the bat. Now, the outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day, for the score stood 2-4 with but an inning left to play. And when Cooney died at second and Burroughs did the same, a pallor wreathed the features of the patrons of the game. Now a straggling few got up to go, leaving there the rest, with that hope which springs eternal from within the human breast. For they thought, if only Casey could get a whack at that, why, they'd even put up money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, and likewise so did Blake, and the former was a puddin' and the latter was a fake. And on that stricken multitude, a death-like stillness sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey's getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single to the wonderment of all, and the much-despised Blakey tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted, and they saw what had occurred, there was Blakey safe in second, and Flynn 103rd. And from that gladdened multitude went up a joyous yell. It rumbled in the mountain tops, it rattled in the dell. It struck upon the hillside, it rebounced upon the flat. For Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. Now there was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place, and there was pride in Casey's bearing, and a smile on Casey's face. And when, responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat, no stranger in that crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands in dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. And while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance gleamed in Casey's eye, and a sneer curled Casey's lip. And now, the leather-covered sphere comes hurtling through the air, but Casey stood a-watching it with haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded sped. That ain't my style, said Casey. Strike one, the umpire said. And from the benches black with people, there went up a muffled roar, as the beating of great storm waves upon a stern and distant shore. Kill the umpire, cried someone in the stand, and as likely they'd have killed him had not Casey raised a hand. And then, with a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult, and he bade the game go on. He signaled to Sir Timothy. Once again, the spheroid flew, but Casey still ignored it and the umpire said, strike two. Fraud, cried the man in thousands, and echo answered, fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face go stern and cold, and they saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lips. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat on the plate. Now the pitcher holds the ball. Now he lets it go. And now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. Band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville for Casey. Mighty Casey just struck out.
Remember that when I was a kid?